Our second reader this evening is Kathleen Glasgow, who I will now introduce. Kathleen is the author of the New York Times bestselling novel, Girl in Pieces. Girl in Pieces has been named to best of lists by the New York Public Library, Amazon, Tasha, Goop, Teen Vogue, BN Teen, Refinery29, EW.com, Teen Reads, and more. Her second young adult novel will be published by Random House Delacorte in 2019. She lives in Tucson, Arizona. Please welcome Kathleen Glasgow.
I don't know how I'm going to follow Jared and Jenny. That was really great. Thank you to Functionally Literate and the Orange County Library System and Raquel Henry and Writers Atelier for having us here tonight. It's really great. One thing I want to say is that if you hear somebody yell, "Mom," it's for me. I brought my son. He's playing Plants vs. Zombies back there, and that is the actual real life of a working writer parent. Sometimes you bring your kids. They're an integral part of your creative process. Also, Harry Potter world. So that's happening tomorrow. I did not want to write this book. How many people here know what self-harm is? Either you have personal experience with it or you know someone who did it. It's the act of hurting yourself to make yourself feel better, which we all know is wrong. And more than 1 million kids, particularly girls, do this every year. It's the act of burning, cutting, or stabbing yourself. There are more socially acceptable ways to self-harm, one of which is drinking, which is rampant among teenagers, and which is a major way that boys self-harm, but yet we say that's acceptable because they're just burning off steam. And I didn't want to write this book because part of Charlie's story is part of my story. People say, how did you come up with the story of Charlie Davis, this 17-year-old girl who starts out homeless and finds a kind of community in Tucson, Arizona? They say, "Are you Charlie?" And I say, well, I gave Charlie my scars, but her story is her own. And her story is her own, but it also belongs to a lot of people, like Sabi from Phoenix, Arizona, who writes me letters every couple of months and tells me how she's doing. And the story belongs to a girl named Lily, who lives in Illinois. And Lily wrote me a long letter after the book first came out. And Lily is 13, and she's on her 5th hospitalization. And the first time that she tried to kill herself was in the 1st grade because she was being bullied. And I have gone to a lot of events this year, and I've talked to a lot of people, librarians and booksellers, and I've gotten a lot of support. But I have met some people who say, that book is too hard. It's just not YA. That's an adult book. And I say, I understand your reasoning that you don't want to put it on the shelf or you don't want to promote it. I say, but then if you don't do this, you're telling roughly 80% of your young adult patrons and a good portion of your adult patrons that their lives don't exist. That what they're going through on a daily basis doesn't exist and isn't worth reading about. And if you can't put a book like this on the shelf or a book like Jenny's on the shelf where you're talking about grief or abusive parents, you're telling them that their lives don't matter. And if there's one place that kids like Danny Falls and Charlie Davis can find themselves and feel better, weirdly, about their horrible situation, and they can think about it safely, it's in books. And that's why you need to have these books that have hard topics on the shelf so kids can see themselves and know that they're not alone and that their lives do matter. So I didn't want to write this book because I had to go back and explore some aspects of myself that I had worked really hard to sort of not get past, because I don't know if you can get past them, but I worked really hard to heal myself in many ways. But I met a girl on the bus, and she was about 15, and she had fresh scars, and I realized I needed to write this story because she was me. and she thought that she was alone, and I didn't say anything to her. And I realized when she got off the bus, I should have said something. So I went home and I did, and I wrote her like a 400-page letter. And it turned out that she wasn't the only kid out there who needed to read a 400-page letter. And for everyone who's like, kids don't read, kids will read stuff. You give it to them, and it's a good story, and it means something to them, and it has lots of swear words, which Jenny and I talked about, and they will read it. Also, my character, one of the ways that she makes herself feel better is by drawing, and she wants to be a comic book artist. So this is her friend Ellis. This is one of Charlie's drawings. So when the book begins, Charlie Davis has tried to kill herself. She was living in a house run by a not very good man. It's Minnesota, and it was cold, and she was rescued from the street by some other homeless kids, and they live in this house. And this man, fucking Frank, is not a good person, and he is a predator. And she killed herself so that she wouldn't have to do what he wanted her to do. And she is on the lawn of Regions Hospital in St. Paul, Minnesota. And all the places in this book are real. So Regions Hospital is a hospital in St. Paul. Mears Park is there. The neighborhood where the house that Frank runs is actually a neighborhood I lived in for 13 years called Frogtown. And all the places in Tucson, including the Dairy Queen on 6th Avenue that she passes by, are real places. So you could actually take a walking tour of this book if you ever came to Tucson or went to St. Paul. Like a baby harp seal, I'm all white. My forearms are thickly bandaged, heavy as clubs. My thighs are wrapped tightly too. White gauze peeks out from the shorts Nurse Ava pulled from the Lost and Found behind the nurse's station. Like an orphan, I came here with no clothes. Like an orphan, I was wrapped in a bedsheet and left on the lawn of Regions Hospital in the freezing sleet and snow. Blood seeping through the flowered sheet. The security guard who found me was bathed in menthol cigarettes and the flat stink of machine coffee. There was a curly forest of white hair inside his nostrils. He said, "Holy Mother of God, girl, what's been done to you?" My mother didn't come to claim me. But I remember the stars that night. They were like salt against the sky, like someone spilled the shaker against very dark cloth. That mattered to me, their accidental beauty, the last thing I thought I might see before I died on the cold, wet grass. So now Charlie is in a psychiatric facility on a special 48-hour hold, which gets extended to a couple of weeks. And she's with other girls who are harmers. The girls here, they try to get me to talk. They want to know, "What's your story, Morning Glory? Tell me your tale, Snail." I hear their stories every day in group, at lunch, in crafts, at breakfast, at dinner, and on and on. These words that spill from them, black memories, they can't stop. Their stories are eating them alive, turning them inside out. They cannot stop talking. I cut all my words out. My heart was too full of them. I room with Louisa. Louisa is older, and her hair is like a red and gold noisy ocean down her back. There's so much of it, she can't even keep it in with braids or buns or scrunchies. Her hair smells like strawberries. She smells better than any girl I've ever known. I could breathe her in forever. My first night here, when she lifted her blouse to change for bed, in the moment before that crazy hair fell over her body like a protective cape, I saw them, all of them, and I sucked in my breath, hard. She said, "Don't be scared, little one." I wasn't scared. I'd just never seen a girl with skin like mine. Every moment is spoken for. We are up at 6 o'clock. We are drinking lukewarm coffee or watered down juice by 6:45. We have 30 minutes to scrape cream cheese on cardboardy bagels or shove pale eggs in our mouths or swallow lumpy oatmeal. At 7:15, we can shower in our rooms. There are no doors on our showers, and I don't know what the bathroom mirrors are, but they're not glass, and your face looks cloudy and lost when you brush your teeth or comb your hair. If you want to shave your legs, a nurse or an orderly has to be present, but no one wants that, and so our legs are like hairy boy legs. By 8:30, we're in group, and that's when the stories spill, and the tears spill, and some girls yell and some girls groan, but I just sit, and that awful older girl, Blue, with the bad teeth, every day she says, "Will you talk today, Silent Sue? I'd like to hear from Silent Sue today. Wouldn't you, Casper?" Casper tells her to knock it off. Casper tells us to breathe, to make accordions by spreading our arms way, way out, and then pushing in, and then pulling out. And don't we feel better when we just breathe? Meds come after group, then quiet, then lunch, then crafts, then individual, which is when you sit with your doctor and cry some more. And then at 5 o'clock, there's dinner, which is more not hot food, and more blue. Do you like macaroni and cheese, Silent Sue? When are you getting those bandages off, Sue? And then entertainment. And after entertainment, there is phone call, and more crying, and then it's 9 p.m., and more meds, and then it's bed. The girls piss and hiss about the schedule, the food, group, the meds, everything, but I don't care. There's food and a bed, and it's warm, and I am inside, and I am safe. My name is not Sue. Thank you. So do we have time to read like one more section? Okay, I lost my spot. So one of the things that I was thinking about when I wrote this book too is that I wanted to talk about the particular friendships that girls have when they're teenagers. And you can become so invested in your friend, like you become the same person. Like I remember my friends when I was a teenager, we would wear the same things, we had to shop, we had to like the same boys. It was like the whole, they become almost your twin. And then there's usually a fracture that happens. Somebody falls in love, something happens, but they're away from you. And that is a really heartbreaking moment because it means that they've stepped into a world that you're not allowed to go into, and your world, your twinship is gone. And so for Charlie, that was her friend Ellis, and so I wanted to write a lot about that. And this is the passage where she first meets Ellis. And it's sort of that moment when you fall in love for the first time because you realize that somebody has noticed just you, like absolutely just you, and you would follow them to the ends of the earth. You know, I know who I am. I mean, I don't know because I'm only 17, but I know like who I am when I'm with people or when they're looking at me and putting me into a slot in their mind. If you have one of your class photographs, I bet you can find me. It won't be hard. Who's the girl who's not smiling? Who, even if she's between two other kids, kind of still looks like she's standing alone because they're standing a little apart from her? Are her clothes kind of plain, dirty, loose, kind of nothing? Do you even remember her name? You can spot the girls who will have it easy. I don't have to describe them for you. You can spot the girls who will get by on smarts. You can spot the girls who will get by because they're tough or athletic. And then there's me. That one. That disheveled kid. Say it. Poor. Who never gets anything right and sits alone in the cafeteria and draws all the time or gets shoved in the hallways and called names because that's her slot. And sometimes she gets mad and punches because what else is there? So when Casper says, "Who keeps your secrets?" I think, nobody. Nobody until Ellis. She was my one and only chance, and she chose me. You don't know what that feels like because you're probably used to having friends. You probably have a mom and a dad, or at least one who's not dead, and they don't hit you. Nobody moves away from you in the class picture. So you don't know what it feels like to every day, every fucking day, be so lonely that this black hole inside is going to swallow you down until this one day, this person, this really beautiful person, comes to your school and she just seems to not care that everyone is staring at her in her black velvet dress, her fishnets, her big black boots, wild purple hair, and red, red mouth. She comes to the door of the cafeteria on the first day, and she doesn't even get in line for a tray. She just looks around the whole fucking zoo of second lunch period, and suddenly she's walking toward you, that big red mouth smiling, her enormous black backpack swinging down on the table, and she's digging out pixie sticks and candy buttons and sliding them to you, your pencil frozen in the air over your sketchbook because this could be a joke, some elaborate plan, but no. And she's saying, Christ on a crutch, you're the fucking only normal person in this hellhole. I'm dying to get high. Want to come over after school and get high? God, I like your hair and your t-shirt. Did you get that here online? What are you drawing? That's fucking angelic. That's what she called things she loved. Angelic. This pot is positively angelic, Charlie. Charlie, this band is angelic. And it was like the world was coated in gold from that moment on. It sparkled. I mean, it was shit still, but it was better shit. Do you understand? And I learned secrets. I learned that underneath her heavy white makeup was a quilt of acne, and she cried about it. She showed me the bags of junk food in her closet, and she showed me how she'd throw up after eating too much. She told me her father had had an affair with her aunt, and that's why they moved, and that her parents were working on it. And her name wasn't really Ellis, it was Eleanor. But she decided to try something new when she moved. But oh God, don't say it in front of her mother, because her grandmother's name was Eleanor, and she had recently died, and her mother would have a fit, an absolute fit. And oh wow, Charlie, your arms, did you do that? It's kind of beautiful. It's kind of beautiful. It makes me a little scared, but it's kind of beautiful. I met this guy named Mikey yesterday at Jaime's, the record store. You ever been there? Of course you have. Look at you. He invited us over. You want to go? He's got like these angelic blue eyes. And in her room, with the wild blue walls and so many posters and solar system ceiling, I could tell her anything, and I did. Charlie, Charlie, you're so beautiful. So fucking angelic. Her hand in mine. She wore white flannel pajamas with black skulls on them. And that was that. My secret keeper. Thank you.